Hi everybody, welcome to this year's WWPF draft here at SimNation. For those of you not aware, WWPF is, well, we'll wait 1 second, but okay, so I'll close that. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome to this year's WWPF draft. Hopefully, this will be a good draft and people won't have to watch me struggling a little bit like I did previously. Um, Before we get into the draft, what I would like to do is kind of just talk about the class, and then we'll start the draft. This class is going to be interesting because for those of you not aware, I don't want to be on the Green Bay. It doesn't matter. Um, for those of you not aware, we have made some changes to how we do the draft class. In the past, we had some issues with because SNCFL is a pretty wide open league. The best of the best of SNCFL would almost be legendary in the WWPF. So what we did this year is we put everybody on a bell curve. So we had roughly about maybe 1 to 3% of the class could have 95 Ohio. Roughly 3 to 6% could have 90 or 90 to 95, and so on and so forth. So what you'll notice about this class is you're not going to see a lot of 95 and ups. I think the class is like 491 people inside the class. So if you think about that from 1%, that's roughly about 5 people. If you go to 3%, you're roughly about 7 people. So, and that, of course, was cookie cutter spread across all the stats. The only stat that we really didn't play with was endurance. I fundamentally have a problem with playing with that one. So it should make for an interesting class. So the name to keep in mind, and we already have the first pick in, and I'll talk about that in a second, but the names to keep in mind from this class are really Sam Major, who is a phenomenal linebacker out of Georgia. You think about the great linebackers out of Georgia over time, he's probably one of the best ever, and just a phenomenal career. We'll talk about him when we take the pick. This is the year of the center. There are a lot of really good centers in this class. Harold Molina, Harry Walker, Sam Serino. Those are names that if you're looking for a center, these are your guys. This is also a continuation of a really good classes coming around free safety, which makes sense because there's been a change in the SNCFL around free safeties, and you're seeing it in these classes. So really good free safeties to keep in mind is Raphael Rush out of UCLA, James Redondo out of Alabama, and then Harry Albrecht out of Maryland. Um, Two quarterbacks to keep an eye on is Ron Baker, who's the junior out of Maryland, who came out surprisingly into the draft and immediately became one of the top quarterbacks. And then you have, of course, Asa Garcia, who was a former #1 recruit out of Florida State, turned down Maryland to go to Florida State and stay in the South. Had a up and down career at Florida State. His senior year was probably his best year, but he threw a lot of interceptions. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. But whatever you're looking for, you're going to find it in this draft. So really stoked about it. Can't wait to get started. And I'm going to play the video now and go from there. And hopefully everyone will enjoy this live event that we do pretty much annually now. So give me 1 second and I'll start the video. And while I'm doing the video, I will go from there. So let me advance. By the way, if anyone's already wondering, I've already imported all the files. I've already processed the trades. The only trades I haven't processed are the contingent ones, and I'm aware of what those are. So you're not going to see me import because I already did it. And that's one of the things that I'm doing, just try to speed it up a little bit. So without further ado, here's the video. And that is really anticlimactic. So with that, we are now into the draft. Really looking forward to this. I mentioned that the first pick's already been made. The first pick was made about 30 minutes ago. Second pick has also already been made. So the Eagles are one of our newer coaches in this league. And for those of you not aware, the Eagles have a long history of success. They were Gary's team for a very long time. They've won Super Bowls, and then of course Don took them over for a while, and then Skelto took them over for a while. Now Justin has the honor of being the Eagles head coach, and they're a pretty good team. They're a team that actually just needs a good coach to bring them back to the glory land. So, uh, no surprise here. Justin picked arguably the best person in this draft, which is Sam Major, the linebacker out of Georgia. We're going to go ahead and make that pick now. I'll just make it to make sure that there's no shenanigans. So we'll take a look at Sam Major real quick. Sam Major is just someone I think is a very real linebacker coming out of SNCFL. I know Shark is really excited about this because I think it's one of the first times he's had the number one pick being made in the draft. So we'll look at him real quick, and Justin will get the first look at his player that he just drafted. And as you can see, agility is off the charts. His intelligence is high. He's got really strong tackling skills. He is fast as hell. The only thing that you could probably say about him that you'd like to see a little bit better would be leadership or team playerness. His endurance could be slightly better, but let's be honest, you're not going to find maybe a better player than him, especially in the defense side of the house. So great pick, Justin. I know a lot of people thought that we might see a number one pick be uh, one of the quarterbacks, but I think in this regard it makes sense that who they went with. The second overall pick is, I believe, if I remember correctly, this is one of those things I kind of wish that they would change, is the Houston Texans, and they already have their pick in as well. So the Houstons are JP, and he's going with the defensive tackle Randy Dayton out of USC. I like this pick. Dayton is, again, a very, very good defensive tackle, and we'll take a look at him real quick. So draft recap is just the way I'll look at this. From Randy Dayton's perspective, again, hugely strong. He's fast. He's a good tackler. What you will notice amongst the top 5, top 10 people in this draft is they are really good players. Although I'm going to warn some people that even though someone looks good, they may be a bust. So that's a dynamic that we're starting to see. Off the field issues can develop. We're seeing that with Marcus Witten, who was a number one pick a few seasons back in New York. He's just been struggling. Um, but really like this pick, 97 strength. He's really strong. His agility could be a little bit better, but speed, tackling, what you're getting is essentially almost like a defensive end. But he was a nose tackle, had a really good career out of USC. So another solid pick. I don't think Stewart is Hill because I think he's doing something with his wife. But he's picking Asa Garcia, which is no shock given what happened with San Francisco this year. So just give me 1 second. And there we go. So let's go ahead and CPU that. And we'll go to draft recap. Up next is Denver, who this isn't going to be a shock to see both Ron Baker and Asa Garcia go in the top 5. Any thoughts about so far? And again, if you want to take guesses, let me know. I'm open to that. I do have chat up in front of me and I am looking at it. But I think what you're going to see with Asa Garcia is he's not as good as Marcus Witten was, but he is really solid. The main concern with Asa, of course, is his up and down career at Florida State. But what Stewart is getting is a 96 arm, 93 intelligence, 93 accuracy. His endurance isn't great, but that's the injury problems I'm talking about really is just how it played out in SNCFL. His first 2 years, he missed games because he was injured. And then his next 2 years, he had good stats, but wasn't overly productive. And a lot of that had to do with just the system he was in. He's got good speed. He's got decent agility. He can move around in the pocket. In theory, he is a very, very good quarterback. What I would worry about is he's a bit of a whiner. But overall, it's a solid pick for Stewart, who definitely needs a quarterback. So great pick, Theo. And I think that he's going to really help turn that franchise back into what Stewart's been trying to build. Um, so it looks like Prince, who is the Denver Broncos, and again, the Denver Broncos had a very up and down year, is picking Ron Baker, who, of course, is the quarterback out of Maryland, won 2 straight national championships for Maryland as both a sophomore and a junior. Um, really, there was a story, though, about why he left Maryland. One of the big reasons is, for those of you who aren't aware, he didn't play in the championship game because he was injured. And of course, one of the freshmen popped up and suddenly became the starter. So let's go ahead and draft him. And open war room, CPU pick. And up next will, of course, be Tampa Bay, which is Kyle. But if we look at Ron Baker, he's a frantic performer, 12,000 yards. And bear in mind, he's a junior. He came out and didn't have his last season, 153 touchdowns. Maryland, of course, runs a pro system where they both run and pass the ball very prolifically. But 72 agility, he's good in the pocket. He can move around. He's got good speed, 93 arm, 93 accuracy. His intelligence is not as good as like Asa's, but overall, he's a solid person. I think the only concern I have with him is his intelligence, which is translated into at times he's thrown some bad passes. But just so everyone's aware, he didn't have lots and lots of interceptions. He averaged about maybe 10 to 12 a season. So traditionally that means less, and he played on average about 17 games a season, so he was definitely less than one. So we're going to continue to move through here and see what's up next. I think Kyle has his pick in, and he's going with Raphael Rush. And you guys are going to have to, I'll pardon, one of the trades has fallen through, so I have to deal with that. but give me a second. Raphael Rush, really like this guy. Stewart definitely likes him. He was a mainstay at UCLA. Stewart is the coach of UCLA. So let's just make sure we got him. So let's see what Kyle got. Draft recap. So Raphael Rush, I expect a lot of good things out of him specifically. He had a very, very prolific career at UCLA. And what Kyle is getting is 96 agility, 70 intelligence, 68 tackling, 89 speed, 81 endurance, good solid individual. This is a really good pick. He's someone that probably could be used for mentoring. Like I said, you can tell he had 14 sacks. Stewart runs a similar defense to what you see in the WWPF, where it's not uncommon to see safety blitzes. So this is a guy who should translate well into the pros. So definitely like that. I will apologize. I have to back out a trade real quick. So just give me 1 second to do that. So let me see what that trade was and back it out. Trade players. Just in general, how what are the thoughts on so far the picks? Anything that anybody likes? Um, New Orleans is, of course, a CPU team, so if nobody's going to make a play for that pick, I will make it for them. That was the pick. This goes back. I think that's it. Okay. So I think that's back to normal now. Okay, so we're back to that pick. So Stewart's a little shocked that Asa fell into his lap. It's largely just because the first two picks were on defense. So I think that that is going to be an interesting one. So this is New Orleans. I am picking for them. And New Orleans is going to go. I'm just going to go straight off my big board. Let me double check something. And I apologize. I just want to make sure I'm not messing the CPU over with what I'm going to do. Okay. So they are going to go tackle because if I remember correctly, they kind of need one. So they will choose William Humphrey, the tackle out of Alabama, who is one of the better tackles in this draft. Let's do that. And I believe Baltimore's now on the clock. Tackle. And Baltimore, of course, is Kevin, who had a pretty good year this year. So, it's wrong team. There we go. Okay. So William Humphrey's a guy I was pretty high on. And as you can see, New Orleans is getting a really good tackle, 82 strength. He's more of a technique guy, but he's got good intelligence. His speed is decent. His agility is decent. And he's just a fundamentally good blocker. And again, a really good person. We joke that this would be like a Gary type person, but he's an athletic blocker, had a very productive career at Alabama, and of course Alabama is in the SEC. Um, and I think that they're now coached by DP, if I remember correctly. But so far, it's interesting. So let me just let Kevin know he's on the clock. So, and we'll look at, so big board wise, I think if I remember correctly, Majors is off the board, Dayton's off the board, so two of the top five are already off the board. Rush is off the board, Garcia's off the board, Baker's off the board. So you have like 5 of the top 10 on the board that are already off. And he picks free safety Henry Joyner, sorry. And let me go back here. So let's find Mr. Joyner. I think this is a good pick. Henry Joyner is out of Texas San Antonio. I think that he's going to be happy with this pick. So go to draft recap, and up next is the Buffalo Bills, which is Aaron. I'll look to see if he's got a file. But with Henry Joyner, you're getting a workout fanatic, 4 sacks, 4 interceptions. He was a tackling machine. Didn't really play as good as he is. And a lot of that had to do with just the system. But when you look at him, you're getting a agile, fast, strong tackling, good hands, free safety. So this is a really good pick. I'm not happy about it because I have Pittsburgh. And this is a type of pick that will just improve your secondary. So really good job, Kevin. That's a really good pick. So let me let Baltimore know that they're up. Buffalo is Brandon. Sorry, wrong one. So I think a lot of this is playing out the way that we thought it might, where 2 quarterbacks would go. Of course, Major was always considered to be a top 5, so was Dayton. I think Rush and Joyner both are people who are expected. Humphreys went a little bit higher than I would have expected, but um, it's just a solid pick. And then if I don't hear from Buffalo within the next few minutes, we'll go from there. But I am curious to know who we think is going to be better, Baker or Garcia. And when you talk about these two coaches, Prince is known for his passing attack. So Baker's probably a really, really great fit for that. San Francisco is, of course, they have Nathan Ford, who is the really phenomenal running back that they drafted 2 seasons ago, who I think led the 3 seasons ago, led the league in rushing 2 years, and then of course Lackey took it back last year out of Pittsburgh. But I think that having someone like Garcia is going to allow him to open up his offense, and I think that that's going to be pretty cool. So we'll give it another minute. Brandon hasn't been all that active recently, so I may make the pick for him. And just seeing, he obviously doesn't have one. Let's see what he needs. Pretty much needs everything. Center, he does not need. Does need a strong safety. Okay, we'll give it one more minute and we'll see who he picks. I like you, Invisible. I can't wait to see that rivalry. We've seen some of the rivalries in the past with just some of the other quarterbacks. Just generally going forward, you're not going to see a lot of the great quarterbacks like what you used to see. Now, we can only nerf them as much as we can from SNCFL. And what we're trying to do is focus on nerfing the categories that would traditionally be something that a rookie wouldn't be as good at. Like intelligence may not be as high when you go to the pros because it's a whole different ball game. Speed may be relative to the conference you played in. So if you're fast in the Sun Belt, you may not be fast when it comes to playing in the pros. Um, yeah, unfortunately they won't, but it'll be fun to watch to see how they play out against each other from a stats perspective. Won't lie, I'm kind of partial to Baker because Baker was my quarterback at Maryland for 3 seasons. The irony, of course, of that is he would never have been the quarterback had I landed Asa Garcia, who I missed out on because I had one more season of Witten, and I guess Garcia didn't want to come in and sit on the bench. So not much you can do though. So I'm gonna check back, see if Brandon has. He hasn't. I'm gonna make the pick. We're gonna go with a strong safety because that's really what he needs. Kill that out. And who is the top strong safety on my board? George Stinson. I don't like that pick, but so they'll take Timothy Conway. So Timothy Conway, another person out of UCLA. So take a look at that real quick. Let me get him back over. Bills take strong safety Timothy Conway. And we'll see also who's on the board real quick. Draft recap. So the Bengals, of course, are a CPU team. I'll pick for them. So you look at Conway, not the greatest of strong safeties, but really serviceable when you think about it. He's fast. He's a decent tackler. He's more of a coverage-free strong safety than a box safety. But he can also play free safety. This looks like he was probably converted from one of the positions and over time built it up. But he's a workout fanatic, had a really good career at UCLA. For Stewart, that's like 2, I think, UCLA players that have won already. Um, so it's a solid pick, especially in the AFC East when you're playing against the Jets, who've got lots of speed in the receiver core, and then you got the Patriots, who also have lots of speed. So the Bengals, if I remember correctly, need a guard, a wide receiver, a quarterback, or a linebacker. So we're going to take guard here. And we will take Harold Bowling out of Georgia. This is a good pick for them as well. So go back hill. And up now will be Udo. I think Udo's already let me know who he wanted. So, but let me put this in there. Bengals take. Let me make sure I got his name right. I did. So Harold Bowling, of course, part of that Georgia squad that has really come on in recent years within the SNCFL. Sharks done a great job with Georgia, especially expanding their talent pool. 199 pancakes. I believe he was a junior coming out. Um, Again, he's more of a technique blocker, but as you can see, he's someone that could anchor the interior of your line. He knows his position very well, potentially could play at tackle. Got good run blocking, pass blocking skills. The Bengals are largely a pass attack, so this definitely plays out well for them. Udo, if I remember correctly, let me just make sure. Thanks, Kevin. I'll slow down when I get around though. So just double checking. So Udo wants to draft a linebacker. Willie Bone. Willie Bone, of course, is out of Maryland. So we'll go ahead and draft him. We put him in chat. And come back here. And who's on the clock? Kansas City, of course, is a CPU team, but I need to stop and wait because we may have a trade for that one. Let's look at Willie Bone. Willie Bone, of course, was a mainstay at Maryland, one of the better linebackers. You're getting a guy who's pretty strong. His agility is not quite what you wanted, intelligence not as good, but he is a tackling machine. He's got decent speed. Definitely can play on the inside really well. Worry a little bit about this. There was a reason why he wasn't a captain at Maryland, and it's one of those reasons, but he's a thumper, which means he's going to get extra points within the tackling realm. And again, he had a good career at Maryland, and he did play largely inside. So it's a solid pick. I think so far there have been some good picks. Um, so if we look at it so far, I think what we've seen in the top 10 is 2 Maryland players, 2 Georgia players, 2 UCLA players, um, and just everyone else. So um, I'll give it a few minutes to let the potential for the trade get processed. And I think if we look at this, it'll be interesting to see how Rush and Joyner compare to Albrecht out of Maryland. Also, Timothy Conway is a really good strong safety. Um, there could potentially be a better one in the class, but a lot of people think are going to overlook him because of what the CPU rated him at. From terms of what round he should go. The same would be at cornerback, where I think one of the best cornerbacks in the draft was actually the CPU put him in the 4th round. So I don't. We may see another quarterback. I would caution anyone going for quarterback in the 1st round. I don't think once you get past Garcia and Baker that you have a lot of 1st round potential in the quarterbacks. I could be wrong though. I don't really get to see the class other than how it came out from SNCFL because once I apply the filters and the scrubbles on it, the only thing I can see is the aggregated scores and the averages. And that purposely is done in a way that doesn't match the way it works in WWPF. So there's going to be I'm going to be off with some of these. Um, but I think that if you're looking for a tackle, there's still a lot of depth, guard, a lot of depth. The defensive ends, I'm kind of shocked that we haven't seen one of those go yet. Um, and I have a thing in. Yeah, Kevin, if you want to post it, if you're listening, go ahead and post it. I'm okay with that. And I'm going to go ahead and start processing that trade. So we have a trade. Baltimore is trading with Kansas City for their pick. So Kevin is probably seeing someone on the board that he didn't expect to be on the board or has made a decision to go after them. Again, Kevin had a really good run this year with Baltimore, and that's despite giving Dustin Sousa to Peter, which a lot of us probably weren't as happy with that. Because Peter with a really strong defensive end is nothing that anybody in the league really wants to see. So let me see. So it would be for the 32nd pick. Who picks 32nd? just see something real quick. Just want to make sure I got the right pick. So it's Seattle's pick. For those who don't know, and I'm going to do a video on this, and I got to apologize to Spoof because I haven't done it yet. I will be doing the championship video and a recap of last season. For those who don't remember, Spoof, who's the coach at Seattle, beat Peter in the championship game. And that was a really big deal because I think Spoof is only in his second or third season with us, and he managed to kind of pull an invisible witness where he jumped up and managed to grab the championship from Peter, who of course is Peter. So he's giving those up. So it's first, second, fifth, and sixth. So fifth this year or next year. Fifth and fifth. And terms for the first. Okay, that works out math-wise. So he's leaving. It's not this one. It's this one. Okay, process, but first one second. And bear with me, I'm just making sure I got everything right. And he gets that. Okay, Kevin, the pick is yours. Oh, that's a really good pick. So with this pick that they traded for, they are going to take Benjamin Culp, who is the wide receiver out of Miami, who is one of Gary's teams. So this is a really good pick. I don't think the nerfer would have done enough to him to change how good this guy really is. So Tennessee is now on the clock. This is what he'll get. He'll get a semi-agile, pretty strong, kind of tall, fast, handsy wide receiver who knows how to play his position, and he's a deep threat, which means on longer passes you're going to get you'll get some positive influence, I guess is the easiest way to say it. So really strong pick, Phil, and the Ravens are just getting stronger. Don't know how I feel about that, but leave that alone. Tennessee is. Should know this stuff off the top of my head. Tennessee is Bama. I think it's Bama. So let me just let Bama know that he's on the clock. I don't remember seeing a list from Bama, so although it looks like we'll wait a minute just to see if he does. But normally when you see the three in alignment, it means that they have a list. And I could look at that real quick. Let me just double check. Let's see, Tennessee. Yeah, it's not showing as having a list, so I'll wait. Um, so generally, we give everybody 5 minutes to make the pick. I will say that I do like the moves that Kevin's making. Um, well, I like them and I dislike them. I dislike them as the coach of Pittsburgh. I like them as the commissioner. Um, so it's getting harder and harder, I think, for Pittsburgh because the AFC North last season was really, really strong, and I think it's only getting stronger. So, uh, and Bio Eagle, of course, had a really strong year last year. I think that who else is so you have Kevin. Cincinnati is CPU still, but has gotten stronger because of the drafting. So I think it's going to get interesting to see how this does. I can show. Give me a second, Peter. I will show you. Let me get back to that screen. So we'll start with Asa Garcia. Um, I should challenge Peter just to say, what does he think Asa is? And what does he think Dayton is? Um, just to kind of see what his thoughts are. I'll just show. So this is Asa Garcia. We talked about is the really good quarterback out of Florida State. Maybe did not have as good of a career in the SNCFL as he could have, but I don't think that changes. I think one of the things I probably need to do better with SNCFL is have videos about the recruiting classes. Coming out, a lot of us had flagged Asa as a guy who probably was going to be a really good pro. Maybe not as good in college. There were a couple of those, if you think back throughout history, of guys who were good in college, but you would never expect how good they became as a pro. Like Tom Brady's probably a really good example of that one. And then he just had injury problems again the first two seasons. The system wasn't a great fit for him. He also had Jeremy Garcia at Florida State, who was the really fast tailback, who's also in this draft class. Um, we'll just sample who runs Florida State went with more of a rushing attack at times. Mostly, I think, because Garcia kept getting hurt. Um, and then, of course, he's still the number 3 pick. I think Stewart would not go back on that one at all. So let me see what's going on here. So, and then of course, so we have a pick in for this, but I'll show Dayton real quick. And then we have Randy Dayton, who again was a 5-star out of, I forget where he was out of, but he was a big name one too. And 60 agility, 63 tackle, 68 speed. Not that far off, Peter. Um, Dayton again is a guy who just is going to fill space, and he's fast enough that he can really collapse the center on the guards and get into the backfield, which was evident because, I mean, he had 17 sacks as a nose tackle. So that means he's really driving the center back into the quarterback most of the time. So this is a really good pick. Now, the Tennessee Titans have selected Harold Carey out of Iowa State, so Shark will be happy because that's one of his other teams. Just double check and make sure I didn't miss that, because he definitely does not want Leo McCauley. So I like this pick. Harold Carey is a guy who I'm pretty high on. Iowa State, of course, used to be a really bad team, and they've gotten better since. I've got Soa. Soa won't be here stuff, so I can do his pick in a second. But for Bama, what he's getting is a really agile, really fast, handsy wide receiver. His intelligence maybe not as good, his endurance maybe not as good, but this is a guy who will definitely open up the passing attack for Tennessee. He's a possession wide receiver on to boot. Um, Against other wide receivers, his career was not as pronounced, but again, he was kind of a late bloomer. So really good, solid pick here. And as you can see, the only thing he's really missing is personality's leadership. So like that pick a lot. I'm gonna go look at what Soa wanted. Just double check everything. So yeah, well, I think what's interesting about the SNCFL is I think over the last few seasons we've actually had a 1 or 2 star actually go in the top 25. Ricky Merriman last year was, of course, a 2 star running back out of Washington State, the second all-time leading rusher on the SNCFL. So, um, yeah, I can do that. So just bear with me 1 second. I am going to do a quick export. Publish and upload. Hopefully my wife or son is not on, otherwise that would get interesting. So I think next I know that Soa is looking for a non-quarterback, strong safety, running back, free safety. So he wants to go with best available. So we'll look at the big board real quick. And if we look at the big board, Sam Major's off the board. I don't think he wants Harold Molina. Randy Dayton's off the board. Uh, he's likely going to get Eric Guerrera because he's the top person on the board who's the running back out of Miami. Um, but Rafael Rush is off the board. Asa Garcia is off the board. George Doherty, the defensive end from Texas, is still on the board. So is Eddie Dillard, the tackle out of USC. George Stinson's still on the board. I'm just looking at the top 15. John Espinoza, the tackle out of San Diego State, still on the board. Andre Crane, the guard out of San Jose State. Charles Straub, the defensive tackle out of UCLA. And then Harry Albrecht, the free safety out of Maryland, are all still on the board. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. This should be done in a second because thankfully this goes by fast. So unless Soa pops on, which he's not because I think he's at a dinner or something, they're going to pick the running back Eric Guerrera. Who's one of the few people I think that actually survived between the big board that I did before the season and the big board now. So we'll go into the war room and we are going to find him. Where is he? And we will draft Eric Guerrera. So Eric Guerrera is a really strong, decently agile, good speed, hands. Now, I know some people are going to look at this and say, hey, look, he's not fast. This, if I remember correctly, I think he's an all-purpose running back. So he's going to give you a couple of things. He's going to help you with prestige because he's got fan favorite. He's an all-purpose back, which means he can come out of the backfield and do a lot of different things. That strength is nothing to laugh at. That actually is pretty good for a running back. His agility is good, meaning he can do things in the short passing game. Speed-wise, he may not break away as often, but he's not going to lose the ball. He's got good endurance, good running back. Not the best running back in this draft, but he's a solid running back. So we'll go from there. And I think up next is the Chicago Bears, which is Coton. And I don't know if he's one of our European coaches. So I'm not going to ask Shark who his favorite player is, but of the people drafted so far, who do you think is the best pick overall? I think my personal opinion is right now it's Asa. Uh, Sam Major is a really good pick for Philadelphia because Philadelphia, in theory, doesn't need a quarterback or other things, even though I think that they would definitely benefit from it. And Coton's got his pick in, and he picks defensive tackle Charles Straub. So that's who they got. Just do this. And up next is the Detroit Lions, which I think that's Brian. So Charles Straub was someone I was high on, another one of the UCLA guys, other than looking like he probably would hurt you in an alleyway. Um, he's got good strength. Agility's not the best, but it's not bad either. Good intelligence, good tackling. For defensive tackle, 62 speed is good. Endurance is a little something I'd be worried about, but overall, solid pick. He's a workout fanatic. Again, comes out of a pro system, so we'll see how that plays out. And then I think the next person up. Let's see here. So after this, there was a trade with San Diego. Let me just double check something here. Yeah, it is Brian. I have to say on the clock. Shark, I'm guessing based on your DM that you want me to execute that trade for San Diego's pick. I gotta leave this anyways to see if Brian had a file up just to make sure. Let's see how Team Detroit. Brian has a file, so I'm gonna go ahead and execute that trade now, which will put New England on the clock after Brian's pick. Well, actually, I'll hold and just take Brian's pick first, just in case. Let's see here. He is going with Michael Hills, the guard out of Virginia Tech, I think it is. Um, okay, there we go. And take a look at him real quick. So, mainstay, I think Virginia Tech, if I remember correctly, is Bama. In essence, CFL. So 82 strength. He's got decent strength, good intelligence, good speed, really good pass blocker, decent run blocker, good endurance for a lineman. Um, Overall, just decent player. He's an athletic blocker. Really came on under Bama at Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech has actually become one of the better teams. So I'm going to drop out again and process this trade because I think Shark wants this pick. So San Diego. So this will be between San Diego and New England. Of course, San Diego last year had the first pick and then bounced back pretty hard because they drafted Bittner, who was the wide receiver out of Maryland. But San Diego sends 116, 616, 716, 1, 6, 7 in exchange for 123, 323, 423. We'll check that. 124. Okay. Okay, trade has been processed. San Diego gives the pick over to New England. New England is now on the clock. And go Hill. Shark. And what are we doing? So, I know someone DM'd me. I'm not shocked that the centers are not coming off the board. Again, center's one of those positions if you have a good one, you're probably not going to draft another one, even if the class is as good as it is. We will be adjusting the overall after the draft. What I'm concerned about is the current formula that is the default formula is artificially inflating the OVR. And I know in videos I've said don't pay attention to OVR, but you do have to care about OVR because the actual salary stuff is based off OVR. So if these guys coming out really shouldn't be like 80s and 90s, but if the game's default OVR calculation puts them at 80 or 90, it just means you're not going to likely resign them easily. So I'm going to look at that. I have some simulations I'm doing off on the side to understand the impact of changing that OVR calculation. So I'm likely going to go ahead and do it. So Shark is picking one of Stewart's players out of Michigan, running back Alejandro LaFleur. This is a good pick. Or at least I think it's a good pick. It may not be, but so LaFleur had a really good career at Michigan, ran for lots of yards against some of the better defenses like at Iowa and Maryland. So really strong pick for Shark. So let's see what it is. So Shark, what you get is 98 agility, 92 speed, not as strong. Intelligence isn't great. His hands are okay, but this is a really solid running back. And again, he had a really strong career throughout it. But yeah, that is a pretty solid pick. Who is up next? It's Green Bay, so that is DWK. I think it's DWK. Ironically, I don't. To me, LaFleur's really good. I think Guerrera's really is a good running back. He's just a different style of running back. Um, I think that there was one other running back that probably is first round material, but you would have to work with him and be okay with dealing with it. And it's fine, DWK, you have up to 5 minutes. So I think as we look through this, and shameless plug, of course, SNCFL begins its week 1 tonight. So that season opens. Um, Anyone who wants to join SNCFL, the players in SNCFL are the players that we're drafting now. Now, I am going to further tweak the draft classes going further because I think I have a good idea of how we can balance it over time. But I think one of the challenges that we're going to run into is I'm trying not to nerf them too much, but I'm also trying to lessen the amount of 95s and up and 90s and up, just because I think that in general we have too many. Um, Speed is one of those where I go back and forth, candidly, because I think speed could translate into the pros well. But I think some of the points that some of the coaches have made in the league are valid, that speed is different in the pros than it is in college. So you could be like a track star in college, but maybe that speed doesn't translate as well when everybody is a track star in the pros. Um, so I've just, Frankie and I got to figure that one out still. And again, like I said, I'm not touching things like endurance, and that's intentional, because I think conditioning is conditioning, injury is injury, and what I worry about is if I start playing with endurance, then I could unintentionally introduce more injuries into the league. And again, I know the argument could be made is that at the pro level they hit harder, and that you get more types of injuries. But the counter is at the pro level you also have better facilities and um, better medical staff. Whereas in college, it really depends on the program you're with. Da, da, da. And then up after Green Bay, of course, is Dawn, then Templar, then Bio, and then Barry, and then Cable, and then the CPU with what they got from New England. I will say that, like Invisible, it kind of sucks, the draft in the back end of the draft. Um, so DWK is going to take da, da, da. Let's make sure I didn't mess something up though. Okay. Is going to take John Espinoza, who is the really good tackle out of San Diego State. Um, let's see what DWK got. DWK is getting a really strong, super intelligent, good footwork, decent blocker. Endurance is maybe be a little bit better, but overall just a really good person. And the only thing to worry about is he's a little bit frantic, but this is a solid pick. So really good pick though, DWK. So Don is up now. Let me see what he had to say. Okay, so he has a draft list. So he's going to pick Harold Molina, but I'll give him, because I know he was around earlier. Da, da, da. Yeah, it's true, Peter. Um, I mean, if you look, I think it sucks that sometimes you look and see some of the really good players going, and you know you have no chance at them. But I think if you look at Pittsburgh, you look at Carolina, you look at Oakland, the teams are the Jets. Well, the Jets traditionally trade away all their picks, so that may be a bad example. But New England, I think what you'll see is a lot of them have done very good drafting at the back end of the draft. And sometimes it's actually easier because you don't have as many options. Um, and you can focus more on what you actually need. Like um, at Pittsburgh, I have only like four needs that I need, and they're not number one needs because I have players who can play those positions, but I'm gonna hold them out. So yeah, it is actually true. I mean, if you look at the really top teams, they traditionally are doing really good. So I'm gonna go ahead. I don't see Don on, so I'm gonna go ahead and draft off his board. So they are going to pick the center, Harold Molina out of Washington State. Um, Cowboys are up. They have a list too. We'll go with that in a second. So Harold Molina probably was the top rated center in this class. It's kind of hard because I think the top three, there's not a huge differentiation between the three. But Molina is 93 strength, 74 intelligence, good footwork again, good blocking skills, good endurance, and he comes out of predominantly a running attack. Washington State is known for just its ability to run the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But good solid pick for Arizona. Um, so do this. Templar has a list as well. Arizona selects Sentinel Harold Molina. Okay. Yeah, I like Molina. I was actually hoping that nobody would draft him because I wanted to try to get him on the back end, even though Pittsburgh has two good centers. Um, Dallas is up now. Templar has a list. It looks like he's picking James Arredondo, and this is a pretty solid pick. Anyone want to take a bet on what he is? Of course, he's the free safety out of Alabama. Try to say that fast. James Arredondo, free safety. Up next is the Browns. We'll see if Bio's around. Let's see. Revert back hill. So Peter thinks 92 agility, 77 tackling, 75 speed. I think you probably are largely right, but I think you're going to be shocked. He is faster than that. So 89 speed, 91 agility. Um, Again, good solid coverage in box safety, I guess you could say. His strength's a little low, but this is a good pick for Dallas, who's looking to get back. He had a very productive career at Alabama. Um, Probably benefited from DP taking over Alabama, um, but just a solid free safety overall. So, um, yeah, the naughty list is not too bad, Justin. Unless you really do something boneheaded. If you do something boneheaded, I'll say something. But generally, I'm nicer to human coaches than I am to CPU coaches, unless I don't like you, and then I may say something. But I think so far. Well, let me ask this: does anyone think that there's been a bust so far in this draft, or a pick that may have been a little bit too high? While we wait for Bio, and let me see if he's got a list. I don't think he does. I think one of the things just overall is like what Peter said, damn you scouts. I'll just say this is my scouts were completely off on like Guerrera, and they were also kind of off on Timothy Conway. I still think Guerrero is a pretty good running back. I think he's probably the weaker of the picks so far in this first round. Bone is another one that I think was drafted a little bit too high. Um, he's not bad, he's just not spectacular. There are other linebackers I think that are stronger, but again, if you're comparing all the linebackers to the guy who went number one, which is Sam Major, everyone's going to be lacking. I don't expect we're going to see too many linebackers like this one. Now, what I will say is what you're going to notice next season and onward is tight ends are suddenly going to be much better coming out of SNCFL. We've tweaked a couple things in that league to get the tight ends to be a little bit better than what they've been because they have underperformed. And I know that there's at least two tight ends in SNCFL right now that are phenomenal blockers, but also very fast. And by very fast, I mean they're 90s fast. Now, will that work out when they come over? Don't know. I am, again, trying to nerf some things. We'll see how that goes. And I don't know that I've seen Bio. I'll give him another minute or two. Yeah, I mean, to me, it all depends on what you want out of Culp. If you want a solid move the chains type person who can also go long, I think he's decent. I think if you're looking for um, someone that just will go long, create separation, and always make big plays, maybe not, which is ironic because at Miami, what Culp was known for was big plays. So he may play faster than his rating, but we'll see. Um, it's hard to tell. So we'll give it one more minute and then I will make the pick. I always hate making picks for people who are in my division because I think if I let the CPU do it, it's going to do really bad by bio. So it's 5:13, yes, till 5:15, and then I will make the pick. Of course, bio last season had a really good pick that translated into, I think, them having a pretty good season. So, because I mean, it looked like it was Baltimore and Cleveland pretty much fought it out all season to see who would be the second person, one of the wild cards. But the pick that he made last year was Newman out of Florida, who just turned out to be a really good quarterback. Of course, I think the year before he had taken Sparks out of Marshall. So he has actually two really good quarterbacks underneath him. He's always had good running backs, and I think his line is largely good. Although I would say tackle is an area of opportunity for him. Tight end is another area. Wide receiver core is decent. His cornerbacks, he's got two good quarterbacks as a whole. I think defensive tackle is an area that they could be better. And then, of course, strong safety is an area where they probably could be better as well. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what he picks. Kind of shocked that Shark is already trying to move Bean. Um, so that's a little bit of a shock, and that's Adnan Bean, who's a running back who's been pretty decent. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. I'm really not keen on letting the CPU make this pick, given who I think that they're going to pick for him. So let's just check one more thing. Um, let's go with I should let the CPU make it. It's not a good thing. Except for he doesn't need a Sentinel. Because the CPU is going to pick a Sentinel, and that's like the worst possible thing that he needs. We'll give it one more check. I don't see, so he's going to go with Eddie Dillard, which is the tackle out of Alabama. So Barry is on the clock. Let me make this pick. There we go. Okay, so let's take a look at Mr. Dillard, who, I'm sorry, he's out of USC. So really strong, good intelligence, good agility, good speed. Again, he's going to be a development at Blockle, but this is actually a pretty solid late first round pick around tackle. He's a tenacious blocker, which is going to help augment his stats. So definitely better than what he's got, and that should translate into a pretty solid career for him. Let me fix this because that'll drive me nuts. And I think Barry sent me thing in case he's not here. Let me look at this. Okay, well his is going to be easy. So let me get back here. Barry had already given me a list, which is George Doherty. So we'll just go ahead and pick that. Let me close this. Go look at him. This was the defensive end I thought the highest of outside of Kincaid from Maryland. LA Rams select defensive end George Doherty. And up next is the Giants, which I believe is Cable. At Cable. Okay, so let's look at Mr. Doherty. 82 strength, 75 tackling, 75 speed, 59 intelligence, 80 endurance. Pretty good for a defensive end. He doesn't. You would have liked to maybe see a speed rusher or bull rusher here, but I mean, 30 sacks across his career with Texas. It's a pretty decent defensive end. I think that there was one or two that may be a little bit better than him. But again, you're going to be splicing heroes at that point. So we can look to see if Cable has one. He selects Douglas Clark out of Texas, who was one of the other top wide receivers. So let me get to that. And we will go ahead and pick him. So Douglas Clark is 89 speed, 87 hands, 83 agility, 68 intelligence. Again, a solid wide receiver, right? And I know some people are going to be looking at this go, well, there were better ones last year, but bear in mind, last year we didn't nerf the class. We did this year. So wide receivers is an area that got nerfed. Now, there are very fast wide receivers, but they may not have good agility. They may not have good hands. Clark is a pretty good one and should help Witten quite a bit because Witten needs kind of quite a bit of help. So that's a solid pick in my eyes. So San Diego's now back on the clock. Let's see what they need. They need a tight end. There's none worth it at this level. Defensive tackle or free safety. Actually, I need a tackle. Never mind. They don't need Harry Walker. So we're going to look at the big board. We're going to make a pick off the big board. So tackle-wise, Dillard's off, Espinizo's off, Humphrey is off the board. Uh, so make Shark happy. They will pick Willie Tillman, who is the tackle out of Georgia. And we'll look at him in a second. So this will bring up, who's next? The Jets. It's a shock to see DP drafting. But so we'll take a look at Mr. Tillman. We look at him again, technique blocker, really good blocker. His physical skills maybe not as good, but this is a pretty solid first round pick. If you look at it, he's an athletic blocker. Had a good career at Georgia. Definitely helped anchor that line that has taken them to the semifinals quite a few times. So that's a solid pick. Just looking at things. Yeah, I think so. I think that I think Clark is actually going to be a good addition to New York. So, and I think again, you want to get Witten more and more. Uh, you want to get Witten more and more weapons. Of course, he's still got to deal with his off the field issues that he's been having. But I think the more weapons that he has, the better. He, of course, came out of Maryland that had a lot of good wide receivers. You think about he was throwing to people like Bittner. He was throwing to, what's the other guy's name? I should remember, but during that period, Maryland had like 4 or 5 really good wide receivers, all 5 stars, and he was throwing to them. So the closer you can mimic that, I think that Witten's going to be better. And of course, he's just got to deal with those off the field problems. So it looks like DP has a. I'm gonna double check and make sure because I don't see him on. DP has one, so if this is DP's pick, I think this is a good pick for DP specifically. Adrian Torres, I think, is probably going to be the fastest wide receiver in this draft based on what I saw from scouting. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am in this case. I think that this is going to be a pretty solid pick. Um, I think he was a player that needed to go to a specific team, and I think this is the right team for him. So if we look at that, we're going to go back to draft recap. So Jets select Adrian Torres. Anyone want to take a bet on what they think Adrian Torres is? Let's see how. So Peter says 83 speed, 83 hands, 85 agility, 55 strength. I think most of those are correct. I think the speed is way off. He has 99 speed, 80 hands, 79 agility, 60 intelligence. He is a burner. So he I'm trying to remember. I think at wide receiver, I forget how many we had in this class, but at like 1 to 3%, there were only like 2 or 3 people who are going to have above 95 speed. Again, some of these stats aren't great for wide receiver, but at 6'3" with 99 speed, he's going to menace everybody in the AFC. Because DP is one of the few coaches I think that can fully leverage this dude. So that is a really good pick for DP. I think there's only 1 or 2 teams that could cover him. Like Pittsburgh has Dominique Burke, who would be capable of covering him because I think Burke has like 99 speed or 97 speed. But again, Spriggs has got to get the ball to him. Spriggs is only getting older, and his arm is not what it used to be. So, um, but once he gets that ball, if you're not smacking him right away, he's probably going to run it away. But again, that's DP's style of offense, so it's a really good offense. I'll look to see if he's got it. Yeah, I don't think Shark likes that pick at all, and I could be wrong because let's face it, DP's already dangerous enough with what he's got. He just got really more dangerous because he likes throwing the ball long and he likes those one-on-one speed matchups, and he's built his team around it. But the good thing is, long passing attack is actually one of the easier ones to defend against if you understand how to do deep zones. And I might do a video on that, but it'll be interesting to see. I'm looking to see if Starfinder has one. I don't see one. Let me see if he sent me something. I don't see anything from Starfinder. We'll give it. He's got 3 minutes, so. So at 5:31, I will make the pick. Go back here. Yeah, I think of all the coaches in the league, DP is one of the. So yeah, the description is generally the same as in DDCF. If you see something that says someone is really fast, you just have to put it in context of their position. So a wide receiver, that generally means they're going to be above 90. Now, the thing to keep in mind is, and I'm trying to see if this is a problem going forward, is um, when we import the draft class, it should update the description to match the player. But I have noticed that with us nerfing the draft class the way that we have, that doesn't always match up in the pro football version, like in college. And for what people are wondering, Justin's question is, in college, if you read the description and you've actually scouted the player or scouted them decently, it actually can translate into telling you whether someone's fast or not. And again, fast is relative to the position and the average. So fast could mean if the average is 80, that they're somewhere in the top end of 80 going into 90. In college football, that's how people like me use that to find 1 and 2 stars that are going to be really good fast players and be able to bring them in. I think you can do the same thing in the pro, but the challenge is how it translates when we do the imports. I'm not entirely sure it's always accurate. Also, the level of your coach's scouting ability matters too. So if they're really bad and they tell you it's fast, I'll take it with a grain of salt. I had a guy last season who told me that one guy was fast and he was actually high on my board, but thankfully someone took him ahead of me and spared me the pain of drafting I think it was either a cornerback or free safety that had the speed of 70. And it was because my defensive coordinator wasn't good at scouting. So we are at 531. Let's see what the CPU wants to pick for thumb. We'll just go with Jeremy Garcia. Now, this will be an interesting pick. Atlanta's up next. So, anyone want to take a bet on what Jeremy Garcia is? He had a really good career at Florida State. Let's see how. Yeah, I was secretly hoping he would slide, but he didn't. 77 strength, 77 agility, 68 intelligence, 100 speed. That wasn't nerfed. That was actually his speed in SNCFL. He was one of the few running backs that would receive elite level. There's a lot to like about him. He's going to be very hard to bring down once he gets past you. But he was very productive at Florida State. As you can see, he's an all-purpose running back, which means he's going to be good coming out of the backfield. So you can build plays to get him the ball in space. So that is, to me, he was the best running back in this draft. So Starfinder gets arguably the best running back out there. So now we have Atlanta, who is on the books, and I think that's Jesse, if I remember correctly. Sorry, Kevin. If you had gotten him, I would not be happy at all because that dude is going to be pretty good. And again, not me picking, that was the CPU picking him. Jesse is like. And I think Jesse may have given me a check here. Let's see. Yeah, I'll give Jesse a minute. So, gonna wait. Just get an idea for it. So, I think the last two are probably the two fastest players you're going to see in this draft. There may be a corner, I think that's equally as fast, but these two were the top two speed-wise that I can remember. So, of course, nobody wants to see Torres in the hands of DP. Garcia with Starfinder. Jacksonville's had a pretty good run here recently, so that's interesting. Let me see if he actually has a file. Atlanta, Jesse does have a file, so. Okay, let's take a look. Open War Room. I like this pick. Harry Albrecht, free safety out of Maryland, is who Atlanta's picking, so we will go ahead and make that pick for him. Um, so the big board, just so everyone understands how it does, because I'm the coach of Pittsburgh, I can't see the individual ratings. I can only see what comes out from the export from SNCFL. What I have set up is a formula that aggregates the averages based on it's kind of like the overall formula for WWPF, and that's what I see on the big board. So if I remember correctly, 80s is a really good player, 70s is a decent player. Garcia was in the 70s. And I think it was because of the averages when you think about his strength, his agility, his speed, his hands, and his endurance would have drug him down to number 49 on the board. So, uh, Falcons select free safety Harry Albrecht. So we'll take a look at him. This is a guy who I think may have been the best free safety in the class. And of course, Kevin's now on the clock, but any guesses around him? I'll just make sure. I'll give Kevin a minute because I think Kevin's board kind of got blown uphill. So I know my board is pretty much trash. So let's just see. We'll take a look at Albrecht while we wait. So Harry Albrecht, who was a mainstay at Maryland, agility of 84, 97 speed, 55 tackling, 54 hands, 88 endurance. Um, Not the best knowledge of his position, and he's a film geek. So again, he plays in a pro system out of Maryland where you'll see a lot of sacks coming out of the free safety position because they play him in the box. But generally, this is a pretty good free safety, especially to get in the second half of the draft. So really good job there, Jesse. Um, okay, and going back. Defensive end Joshua Kincaid, one of my favorite players out of Maryland of all time. So we'll see if he's decent. Just double check and make sure I got it right. Baltimore, and then Rick's up after this. Did I mess that up? Oh, that's right. Rick backed out of the trade. Sorry about that. Where is he? Joshua Kincaid. Any thoughts about what Joshua Kincaid is? And now Rick should be on the clock. Da, da. Okay, I'll give him his 5 minutes, so 5:45. Joshua Kincaid, 82 strength, 69 tackling, 82 speed, 62 endurance, 99 defensive end. He's a bull rusher. So I know that Kevin is looking to replace Dustin Sousa, who he traded to Peter. So it's a pretty good pickup for him. He reminds me kind of another Baltimore mainstay that ended up, I think, at Carolina, which was William Tate. So should be pretty good. And again, not sure how I feel about it. I have mixed feelings only because I'm going to be facing him at least twice a year, so that should be interesting. And then I don't think that's Rick's pick, so we'll wait for Rick. And I think we are getting near the bottom of the draft. We have the teams that largely finished in the top, so I know that there's some potential movement for the 32 pick, but you have Rick at Minnesota, Invisible at Carolina, me at Pittsburgh, and then Rick again at Minnesota, which will round out the round. There will be a change this year when it comes to the draft. Going past the first round, we will be drafting by the whole round instead of part A, part B, which is what we used to do. The second round, of course, will run. Those rounds will run essentially every 2 days until we get through the seventh round. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. Yeah, but I mean, in theory, with a defensive end, it's always good to rotate. So I think he should be fine. He can at least play 2 downs, and then you bring in someone for the third down, or just figure out a way every other series to rotate it. Bruce Weddle, linebacker out of Miami. So Minnesota's pick is Bruce Weddle, who is the linebacker out of Miami. Let's take a look at this one. And up next is, I think, Invisible. Um, take a look here. Mr. Weddle comes from Gary's line of tree. 71 strength, 62 agility, 61 intelligence, 83 tackling, 77 speed, 84 endurance. Knows his position really well. He's a coverage linebacker. He's probably an inside linebacker with that speed, but you could play him on the outside. So I think we have Invisible, and I know Invisible's typing. So, and then you guys will have to bear with me 1 second because I'll have to make my pick right after Invisible goes, and then of course Rick, and then we'll see if the trade's going to develop for 32. Like this pick, so Invisible is going to go with defensive end Kevin Bohm. Um, who is the defensive end out of Louisiana Tech. And let's take a look at him. Yeah, I think my entire board has been trashed at this point. So Mr. Bohm is 73 strength, 65 intelligence, 73 tackling, 77 speed, 57 endurance, 92 defensive end. Knowledge, he is a speed rusher who had 35 sacks across his career at Louisiana Tech. Decent pick. So now let's see who Pittsburgh is going to pick. Now that my board is pretty much toast. I am not picking Leo McCauley, even though he was my quarterback at things. So my tackle was off the board, my linebacker was off the board, my defense tackle was off the board, my strong safety is off the board. Yeah. I just pick best. I don't need a quarterback. And I did have a list, which tells you that if it's doing this, my list is gone. Leo McCauley was on my list, but he's on my list for like second, third round. Oh boy. Do I go with Yoakum? No. I don't remember much about that dude. Nope. I could go with Haggerty, but I don't want to go with Haggerty. Sorry, bear with me. This is one of the challenges of drafting late when your whole board is gone. I like Stinson, but I don't like him that much. So I have like 2 minutes to make my pick. Oh boy, this is gonna suck. That was my list that I had. Oh boy, this is really gonna be hard. If I needed a cornerback, this would be so easy for me. Oh well, I'm just gonna go for it and see if this works out. So let's, I really need a linebacker above everything else. So I'm gonna go with Adam Lyons out of Central Michigan. I kind of know him since I was his coach. Uh, yeah, Peter, I could spend all day, unfortunately. The only thing I'm thinking of is, do I go defensive tackle? But I don't really think that there's a good defensive tackle that's relatively on the board for me with how I play. Dayton's off, Straub's off, Bain I'm not high on. Yeah, I think it's going to be that dude. I do need a strong safety though because Taylor's getting old. Do I go this direction? Okay, I'm gonna regret this probably, but I'm not gonna go with him. I am going to go with Ralph Whitfield. Pretty sure that's the right pick. I feel like I'm getting this wrong. Okay, I'm just gonna go. Sorry about the indecisiveness. So we'll go with Ralph Whitfield out of Connecticut. Um, Okay, so I think if I'm not mistaken, Minnesota is back on the clock, and that will be Rick. Let me let him know. And then we'll see if the one thing develops. I'm going to regret not getting Lions, I think. Okay, let's look at Mr. Whitfield. So, strong safety, had a really good career out of Connecticut. Connecticut, of course, is not known for it being a really good team. Low morale is never good to begin with. 60 agility, 70 agility, 40 intelligence, 77 tackling, 95 speed, 50 hands, 95 endurance. Intelligence is going to be a problem for me because I tend to like strong safeties with intelligence. But overall, not a bad pick. We'll see how he plays out. I still have Michael Taylor for like another season or two, but he's at like 32 years old, so it's a good chance that he won't be my starter. I think Doherty has already been selected. Did I miss that somehow? I thought Doherty was, yeah. Let me do this. Already selected by LA Rams. Is it Chicago that's up? It looks like Minnesota is up. Am I missing something? I may be missing something. No, he's good. He was one of the top rated people I had at that position. It's just what I worried about is his intelligence. But we'll see. I got a couple seasons to break him in, and I kind of need him because Pittsburgh had another strong safety that was fast. So when I played running teams, Michael Taylor plays and is a box safety, and he's been a really good one since his rookie season. But I have a second one that I use against people like DP, where I have to go with more speedsters outside. So um, the concern I have is I'm hoping Lyon doesn't go away because I'm pretty high on him in general. Um, Even though he's truly a coverage linebacker, he's a coverage linebacker slash blitzing linebacker. He's not really a box linebacker in any way, shape, or form. Let's see how. And because I know Rick's around, I'm not going to pick until Rick has a chance to adjust. So I think largely we've seen some of the best people. Now, I will say if you're looking for a cornerback, there was a good cornerback out there still. I think strong safety, there's another strong safety that's pretty decent out there. Free safety, I think you've hit the top end of the free safety. Again, decent free safeties are still available. I think wide receiver, there's one other really good wide receiver out there. I think tackle, there's one or two good ones. Guard has still got a couple. Center, of course, still has two, maybe three really good ones. Quarterback, I think what you're looking at is the next set of quarterbacks are more dual threat quarterbacks who would be good in specific systems, but you may have some issues though. Running back, I think there's some decent running backs. Tight end, there's a decent tight end still out there from Boise State. And now might be an appropriate time to go after him. So, sorry, for those who don't know Raging Cajun, Raging was co-commissioner with me for a long time in the bowl bound leagues and is a really great guy and glad to hear from him. He helped me manage the WWCF for a very, very long time and was a great coach at both Texas and Michigan. So, one of the ones that had multiple titles, always was competitive, just all around great coach. So there were people in this league who came out of bowl bound. And bowl bound still has a special place in my heart. If you're interested in bowl bound college football, the WWCF is still going. It got merged with GDCFL. So great league to join. Um, so, um, and for those of you who don't know, so Maryland in SNCFL is known for its rushing attack. In in WWCFL, which is a bowl-bound league, Maryland is known for its passing attack. John had one of the passing attacks that could rival it. So, just all around really good coach. Miller's still going in that league, who is the Rutgers, Texas Tech coach, Idaho coach, who's just, again, another really great coach and definitely sarcastically funny all the time. So, sorry to have a blast for the past while we wait for Rick to adjust his pick. Yeah. I wish I had that passing attack in these leagues. The game's a bit different. And anyone who ever wants to blame anybody for like my passing attack in uh, bowl bound, you can blame Danny Z or actually Askell, who's one of the developers for this game. But inside this game, the people that normally you can blame is Skeletor for rushing, Doc for rushing, and then Frankie for passing, because I learned how to throw the ball by Frankie, watching Frankie. Christian Hood, wide receiver, UCLA. Let's make that happen for you. And then if anyone wants the 32nd pick, it is open. So let's clear this out. Another UCLA person going. Um, let's see what this person looks like. So Christian Hood, wide receiver, UCLA, 86 speed, 89 hands, 94 agility, 86. He's 6'2", 73 durability and endurance, and he's a slot wide receiver. Decent pick, especially late in the first round. So, got to be happy with that one. Let me look at the calculator real quick. I think that works. Peter, if you can post that, I'll go ahead and process it. I'm just double checking the math real quick. I think it looks directionally right. For those who don't know, we use a calculator for CPU picks, just to make it easier and make it feel whenever we're allowing humans to go after CPU picks. So 32nd pick is 184. I believe that's 186. Looks like 186. So bear with me. I got to process this pick real quick. Gotta drop out of here. This is Kansas City and Oakland. I didn't mean to do that. That's not what I wanted. So Kansas City, Oakland, and now what I'm looking at is yep, math adds up. This is one of those where I wish that it would not change my focus on the screen, but it will. So it's a third, Indy third, Oakland, Indy. So Raiders, Oakland, New York. think that looks right. Oakland, Indy in the third. Oakland, Indy in the fourth. Oakland Jets in the fifth. Oakland, Indy in the sixth. Oakland, Indy in the seventh. And then they get the 32nd pick. Okay, you're on the clock, Beetle. And this will be the last pick of this year's draft. So, let me look here. And for those of you who don't know, Shark was also a long-time BBCF coach and had lots of success with Ohio State. So let me see who he's going with. And with the last pick of the round, he is going with Shelton Kahn, the cornerback from Middle Tennessee State. Open war room. I think this is going to be a good pick. Draft Shelton. And with that, we have completed the first round. Peter, any thoughts or ideas about what you think you just drafted? Other than he's probably going to menace everybody. Okay, so we'll take a look at Shelton. So 82 speed, 88 speed, 82 agility, 58 intelligence, 55 tackling, 63 hands. Probably not the best cornerback, but will probably flourish in the system that is known as Peter. So round one is in the books. Oh, never mind. Hold on. Oh, shoot. Give me a second. I'll fix this. Well, everybody just saw Khan, so let me. I'm not gonna do it that way. So Philadelphia is going to select Khan, and then you're fine, Peter. I got this. So Harry Walker. So Philadelphia is going to select Khan. I'm sorry, Philadelphia's going to select Harry Walker. You two are going to trade. And then I'll adjust the salary after the fact. Let me just make sure I got that right. No, I'll adjust the contract, Beetle, since I made the mistake. So, Shelton Khan. Okay. So, I should have caught that. Okay, so this is Philadelphia. Now we're finished. Now I need to go back. And have a trade. Sorry about that, Peter. Philadelphia and Oakland. So Philadelphia will give Harry Walker to Oakland for Shelton Kahn. Okay, and then I will adjust the salaries accordingly. So we should be good now. Okay, so the rest of the second round will go today. Got a little bit of a thing, and I apologize for that, everyone, but it should be fixed, and I'll fix the salaries. Yeah, well, I don't think you got to see all of him, so I'll show you all of him. Again, the 100 is what I was talking about, that I need to adjust the overall. But Mr. Walker is an 83 strength, 70 intelligence, 95 pass blocking, 91 run blocking. He is a beast. So that should make Peter happy for the rest of his life. And I can only imagine what that's going to look and feel like for the rest of us that have to play Peter on a yearly basis. So everyone, thank you. I think that overall, quick thoughts about this draft round. So no shock that Sam Major went first. Of course, he is the beast linebacker out of Georgia. Not really shocked that Dayton went second. Dayton is, again, a really good defensive tackle. And then we had the two top quarterbacks going, Asa Garcia and Ron Baker. Asa's out of Florida State, Ron's out of Maryland. And then we had a kind of run on safeties with Raphael Rush, the free safety, going to Tampa Bay out of UCLA. Henry Joyner, free safety, I think out of Alabama, going to Baltimore. Timothy Conway going to the Buffalo Bills. And interspersed with two linemen with William Humphrey and Harold Bowling. Bowling being from Georgia, of course, Humphrey being from Alabama. And then we closed out the top 10 with Willie Bone, who may have been a little bit of a reach at 10 as a linebacker, because there may be some other really good linebackers in there. We had some wide receivers go with Culp and Carey. Carey is actually probably the better of the two of those, but time will tell. The general theme is quite a few UCLA, Georgia, Maryland, Texas players went. Kind of shocked to see that one Molina dropped to number 18, and that Doherty dropped all the way down to 21. This is probably one of the better picks in the draft with Adrian Torres going at number 24 to the Jets, which is DP, really monster type wide receiver. Jeremy Garcia, if you look at these two real quick, um, he's a burner. He's a burner. So really two good picks right there. Harry Albrecht was maybe a third good pick. So I think this stretch of picks may have been some of the most influential picks that we've seen. And then, of course, we had my mix up with these two, which is now fixed, but I'll fix the salaries as well. But overall, I think in the first round, there were only a couple busts or reaches, I would call. I wouldn't call them busts, they're more of a reach. But all in all, I think that we saw some really good players drafted. And the second round will run on the 22nd after 8 p.m. It is the whole round and it is a list draft. So Philadelphia is already drafted. It'll be the rest of the round. But make sure you get your lists done. You would export those just like you'd normally export your league file. But thank you for taking the time tonight and thank you for the engagement. I do think that Peter made a really sound draft pick at the end, and pretty excited for that. Names just to watch in the second round because I do this every year. I think if you're looking for a center, you can't really go wrong with Serrano out of Memphis. He is a really good center. I think some of the people just to keep an eye on inside the second round, specifically with what you're looking for. But I think you still have CJ Kelly, who's the wide receiver out of Coastal Carolina, who has some good speed on him. You got Randall Minnick out of Maryland, who I will tell you is a pretty good cornerback as well. You have Craig Howard out of Georgia, who I think will be a pretty good quarterback. Adam Lyons, a Central Michigan linebacker. If you're looking for a speed type linebacker, I think that he's probably a good fit for you. You have Jesse Rogers, who's the fullback out of Washington, who, if you need a fullback in the second round, may be a good time to look at going for that. A guy I a guy I'm pretty high on that I don't think has went if you're looking for more of a wide receiver would be, I'm just looking over my list that I have. Actually, no, I think I already covered them. So when you look at some of the people to think about for things like linemen, depending on the style you play, I think you've got, what is his name? You've got, so Molina's already come off the board, but you have a couple other people like Ray's Levine out of West Virginia as a defensive tackle that you might want to take a look at. He's pretty decent in my eyes. A name that I haven't talked about a whole lot at guard is Robert Roney out of Alabama. Um, it would be a guy I would take a look at. Carl Yoakum, the Louisiana State tackle, is another guy. Um, and then I think you're going to start running into some people who may not be as good, but David Bassett out of Duke is a tackle that I would take a look at. And I'm trying not to click on them because I'll give away some stuff if I do, because I think I would show what Green Bay has for their scouting, just the way it works. But all in all, a really good draft, and I think that um, we are this hopefully this new draft class is doesn't feel like it's so heavy like the last one did. In that people are generally feeling like we're a little bit more balanced than we were. It's still going to be a work in progress. I will balance out the OVRs because the OVRs are kind of high. And I think I need to fix that. Otherwise, you guys are going to be paying out of the nose for these players. And that's not the intent. So, uh, outside of that, I think that I'm going to wrap it up. But thank you for attending and participating. Just general plug for leagues. If you're interested in the college game, SNCFL is what feeds these players into this league. It's a very, very good college league. We also have the two new leagues, which are the GMPFL and the GMCFL. Those are leagues where you don't have the ability to change the playbooks. You have to use the coach playbooks, and generally a little bit harder because they're in hard mode. So if you're interested in either one of those two, I'll post the links in this video. But thank you for your time tonight, and hopefully next time I'll be able to drag Frankie or Gary into this. Maybe not Skeletal because I don't know that I can deal with all the strikes. But all in all, thanks for your time tonight. And John, it was great to see you, man. It's been a while, and I definitely appreciate you stopping by. It's definitely a blast from the past. So have a great night, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and log off because I need to take a break before I have to run the week one of SNCFL tonight. But thank you. Have a great night. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now.